realistically, there is that path to time independence through owning your own business. But I think you have to put in the time in order to make that a reality. Um, I tried to short circuit and shortcut things by hiring a general manager and essentially throwing money at the problem. But that, in my opinion, doesn't work in emerging brands.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Alex, welcome to the show.
Good day. How you doing, Erik?
Great. What does good day mean? Like who says good day? Like is that it sounds like an Aussie thing. Do you have an Aussie accent? Is that an Aussie accent out here?
As I said that, I thought, well, who says that anymore? I'm showing my age and my international traits a little bit. Yeah, I lived in Australia for a little while. I grew up in the UK. I'm now living in Canada. So, yeah, I probably don't have a true international home, if that makes sense. But I pick up
Oh
little
man,
bits from everywhere.
I like it. I was just on a 5-country vacation with the family. We were in Rome. No, in Cinque Terre. No, Rome. We were in Rome sitting next to an Australian family that and we're talking about their accent, and they've been traveling all over as well. And so it's fun. It's fun getting exposed to the world. Like we live in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota, and going to Switzerland and Italy and
Wow.
France and the UK and then Iceland, like it just exposed my family, my girls, to the world, which is so good. So I love talking to people that have that international exposure.
Yeah, and great that
Canada,
you can
that's
have that
international.
experience for the family. Hey,
Yeah.
Canada's international. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was on The Office that Michael Scott went to Canada. He, you ever seen The Office? You had to have seen
I
The
might go
Office.
there. I'll try and go there one day. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you are a franchisee with Modern PURAIR, and that's a brand, that's a Front Street brand. And then you are also a franchisee with 1-800 Got Junk, both in the service-based world. Give us kind of your story, how you got involved with 1-800 Got Junk, because you've been with them for like 16 years, and you got into Modern PURAIR, and like that's kind of one of you're focused on that in with your time right now. So I want to just unpack all of that. So let's go back to the days in the UK to Canada and getting involved with 1-800 Got Junk.
Absolutely. So I'll try and keep it short. Yeah. So back in, it would be 2002, not to age myself too much. I was in the UK working for American Express, so big international well-known company, doing corporate re-engineering, so making the company quicker, faster, cheaper. Never really got inspired by the whole idea of just making companies more optimized. I always wanted to focus on growth and how do we build things as opposed to shrink things. Um, and so I was looking at what I wanted to do with my life and decided that Canada was the place to be. I had a whole criteria of why I picked Canada, but decided Canada was where I wanted to go. So packed up, quit my job, packed up, had a 2-week hotel reservation in Vancouver, a couple of dollars in my pocket, didn't know a single person in town, and just really had to figure life out pretty quickly. So started doing what I call the smile and dial, just calling entrepreneurs in Vancouver once I'd landed to say, hey, here's who I am, here's what I've done. Can I buy you a cup of coffee and just talk about your business and what you're doing? Met a lot of business owners, really grateful for the amount of people that did actually meet up and chat, which just goes to show if you ask, sometimes you get. And so met up with a lot of business owners, but didn't really get inspired by what a lot of people were saying. People like, yeah, we're looking at growing, or, we're kind of doing our thing. And then I came across this small company called 1-800 Got Junk. Didn't know anything about franchising, to be perfectly honest. Certainly never pictured myself working in the junk removal industry. But what I came across with Brian Scudamore and Cameron Herold, the CEO and the COO at the time, was this vision and this passion for this business that was captivating. And, the the painted picture that they had for the future of where they wanted to take the company and the mission that they were just trying to assemble some good people to go and crush those goals and make it happen. It just, it, well, I was bought in. I was all in on day one. So that's kind of where that journey started, was me just moving to Vancouver and trying to figure out what I wanted to do and really getting captured by this vision of, this small company in Vancouver at the time. Obviously, it's gone on to become quite a big, successful behemoth, but a very small company at the time with this really compelling vision for where they wanted to go. And that's kind of the start and the nucleus of all of it for my journey thus far.
So let's unpack, start with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, because I think, it's uncommon to talk to somebody like you who's been with a company for so long and then decided to do it again with another emerging brand like you did with Modern Pure Air. But going back to those early days, what was it like? I know they're both big into culture, both Brian and Cameron, but back then it was an emerging brand and franchising wasn't even as big as it is today. And I know that they worked well together, to help kind of put them on the map and to have that visionary integrator relationship. But what did you see back in the day as you think about that as an emerging brand, and how has that grown? How have the systems grown? What have you learned to appreciate about an emerging brand growing the right way?
Absolutely. So, way back when, I wouldn't say that we had a defined playbook for success. We were an emerging brand. We were trying to figure things out, but we were very authentic, I would say, about the things that we did well and the things where it was still a work in progress, things that we were trying to figure out. One of the things that I know Brian and Cameron, they were a superpower team together. I know Cameron talks about that a lot, certainly in some of his books and his speaking that he does. They were a superpower. That visionary CEO and the integrator COO. It was a powerful combo, but what they built around it was also a fantastic culture. We hired for people that, I think it was, we stole the model from Apple and Steve Jobs. We hired people who had that sparkle in their eye, people who didn't necessarily have the answers, but were willing to go figure things out and find the answers. And that's what we needed in an emerging company like that, where looking 6 months down the road, our goals were so aggressive that every 6 months would essentially be reevaluating or reinventing the company. So there wasn't a defined, here's the road we follow, here's what we do. We were charting a new path in an industry that didn't exist. And so, every day we had to have that mindset of, you know, create, refine, and don't have an ego attached to things. And just because we put a process or system in place today doesn't mean it's going to be there forever and you built it. It was important that everyone on the team looked at the greater good, so to speak, and said, how do we win as a team? Because it doesn't matter what any one individual person does within the team. It's about how do we move this thing forward together to achieve the painted picture and the goals that we had set out.
So growing up in a brand like that with two really good, really strong leaders, and today being a part of Modern Pure Air with another, dynamic leader in Lane Martin, like what did you learn that you do in your local franchise that you've taken from those three great leaders?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned just what we're doing at Modern Pure as well, because I see that very much being, the ground floor that we had in 1-800-GOT-JUNK, a couple of decades ago. And that's kind of what inspired me to get involved in Modern Pure is the ability to do that all over again and be around another inspirational, visionary leader. But what I've taken, not just from, you know, 1-800-GOT-JUNK and Modern Pure and a couple of other things I've done, is the power of people and vision. Like I said before, what got me involved on this journey, what was that hook for me, was the painted picture that Brian Scudamore had set for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Back in 2002, we had the vision of being in the top 30 metros in the US by the end of 2003, and then being $100 million system-wide brand by the end of 2006. It was very clear, it was very concise, it was very compelling. So having very clear, articulated, publicly posted goals like that is something I've taken into every venture that I've done since. And it's certainly something that we have incorporated into my local franchise here at Modern PURAIR. It's up on the wall in the office, so everyone can see it. It's something you see when you first walk in the morning. And not only is it something for the team to rally around and build a culture around, it's something that we use to hold ourselves publicly accountable to. I'm not going to write something and put it on the wall and tell everyone I'm going to do it if I'm not going to do everything I can to make it happen. And if you're someone from a recruiting point of view, who you see those goals on the wall and it doesn't light you up and you don't get excited, well, maybe you can self-select out. Maybe this isn't the right opportunity for you. So it, simple as it sounds, having that statement of vision and a clear articulated goal for where you want to be in the future, what I found is it then helps really cement the whole culture around everything you're trying to build and creates that real true alignment around, are we all moving in the same direction and are we all on the same bus, so to speak?
I think people want to know, how do you pick brands with great leaders like that? Oh my gosh. I mean, Brian Scudamore, Cameron Harold, Lane Martin, like those are three powerhouses. And Cameron's gone on to do a lot of really cool things with the COO Alliance, and he's helped me tremendously through a lot of things. Brian's been on the podcast, and I probably should get him on the podcast again. And then getting to know Lane and just what a great founder and leader he is, and he's not one to sit back and just let things go either. He is a driver, and he's always pushing things forward. So what was it about, like, so you had successful, still have, but you had a successful business with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. What was it that compelled you to want to look at a second brand? Because there's a lot of people out there, Alex, that think about buying a second brand, but it's just thinking about it. They never do anything with it. So what was the catalyst that made you actually move forward with Modern PURAIR?
I think it was having 3 kids and needing to get out of the house. So that's a joke. Um, So, no, it was really, I've been very blessed in life. What I learned in those early days of 1-800-GOT-JUNK has really helped propel me in my career. And one of the things that I'll give kudos to Brian and Cameron for the team that they developed and the mindset that was in place, because so many people of that small cohort that we had who built the company back then, so many of those people have gone on to do phenomenal things in their own careers. And it's amazing to see the success that others have had coming out of that, almost that little incubator of success. And so, I've sold multiple different companies since. I had a food delivery company that I took all over North America. I had a medical company, which was the number one or the largest number of primary healthcare facilities, so family doctor practices in Canada. Actually ended up taking that public, which was a fantastic experience. And then after that public company experience, I did start a family, had a little bit of time on my hands, and just I still had that itch. I still had that desire. It wasn't necessarily a financial driver. Like I was very comfortable. I'd done well. Um, but I still wanted to get up to bat and, swing for the fences once or twice more. But I didn't just want to jump into anything. I wanted to do it with the right brand and the right people. So I actually spent a long time kicking some tires. Um, Looked at buying just a regular business, but I love the tribe that comes of franchising. I love the systems that have already been put in place. Business is hard enough as it is, trying to do something from scratch, from a blank sheet of paper. So I'm always inspired by the lessons of others and what have other people learned, and what are the tools that have been put in place. And that's why franchising is something that's a great fit for me, because it provides that structure and the tribe and that cohort of people you're building this with together. And but gives you a bit of a leg up, if that makes sense. Because yeah, entrepreneurialism can be lonely. So yeah, doing it with a great group of people is important. And so I looked around at lots of different brands, a bunch of franchisors in the US that were looking to come up to Canada. And it was funny, I had a franchise broker, and I kept saying to him, I'll look at anything except home service truck-based businesses, because I've done a few of those now. I've got my 1-800-GOT-JUNK stripes on my shoulder. Send me anything other than truck-based home service businesses. And so we looked at a lot of things. Nothing really inspired me, just like, 20-ish years ago when I was doing the Smile and Dials and talking to business owners in Vancouver. There's a lot of great brands out there, but just didn't have that. Nothing was capturing the emotional heartstrings for me. And then after about 8 months, my broker was like, look, Alex, I've got this one business I've been dying to tell you about, but you said no truck-based home service businesses. So just do me a favor. Just please look at it just this one time. I'm like, okay, well, I'll take a quick look. And it was Modern PURAIR. And, based in Kelowna, in British Columbia, Canada, so only a 4-hour drive from where I live. And as soon as I started looking at it, I was already aware of the brand and lane and what they were doing. It's a small world out there. But as soon as I started really taking a good look under the hood, it started ticking all the boxes of where we were when I first started with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. In fact, I would say to Lane, we're actually a little bit ahead, quite a bit ahead from a system, structure, support, and all of that in terms of what we offered at 1-800-GOT-JUNK back in the day to what Modern PURAIR are offering. It's phenomenal for a smaller emerging brand, the structure and the support and the systems that have been put in place. And it started ticking all the boxes about the vision, the passion, the people, the industry. And, I spent a day in Kelowna, went out into the field, started talking to customers. I'm like, these are the same customer profiles. And yeah, just really started, lighting my passion and said, right, this is the thing I'm going to get off the fence for and get back in the game.
What are the similarities between like 1-800-GOT-JUNK from a service, like a customer standpoint, marketing standpoint, sales standpoint? Like what are those similarities and what are the differences in those two industries?
Yeah, so the similarities, it's a premium service. It's a home service, predominantly home service based industry. You're coming into people's homes, and generally speaking, we're a premium product. People care about their homes. Doesn't mean necessarily you've got a higher disposable income, but you care about your home, you care about your environment, and you want a quality, reputable company to turn up and look after you. In any industry, be the junk removal industry, air quality, and HVAC cleaning. There's a lot of people, if you just want the cheapest price, you can find people to give you the cheapest price. But the service you're going to get will reflect that. We always used to talk early days 1-800-GOT-JUNK, the beat up old pickup truck with the wood panel sides, leaving a big stain of oil on your driveway when they pull away. You can still get that even today if price is the ultimate thing you're looking for. But when you're competing on service and providing an experience and doing things like showing up on time in a clean, shiny truck with friendly uniform drivers, people that you would like to welcome into your home, and creating that experience for the client that's unexpected. Those are the things that are very similar within these two brands. And, with certainly on a Modern PURAIR perspective, with our 11,000 plus Google 5-star reviews, I like to think that we really excel in providing that exceptional service. What is different, though, is in 1-800-GOT-JUNK, it's very much a visible service. You have this horrible pile of junk that you want to get rid of. You're looking at stuff in your garage. The team turn up, they take the junk away, and instantly you feel, relieved. You see the junk is disappeared. Whereas in Modern PURAIR, you don't see inside the HVAC vents. The service we offer is one that's very, I call it invisible. Whereas we come in, we do our work. And so we have to really think about, how do we make an invisible service visible to the customer? So, obviously we have tools and processes for that, including like showing the vacuum bag at the end with all the dirt and the dust in, or whatever else we find in the vents, kids' toys, or all kinds of things that get pulled out of those vents. But we have to think about that extra layer of, how do we make something visible, which inherently is an invisible service? So that's probably one of the biggest differences.
So let's talk about day to day, because I'm always interested in talking with franchisees. I was always one that was very more semi-absentee. In general, I'm a huge proponent of like being very transparent with what semi-absentee means, or not being hands-on day to day in the business. So I either had business partners, or I chose industries that had that did not have a lot of employees, or that lent itself to paying someone a bunch of money to be able to do the work of an owner. And really, it came down to me as the franchisee being willing to do that, and then also being willing to step in whenever I needed to, or have a partner that was able to do that. And it happened more times than not. So semi-absentee, I just did an episode with my business partner, Bobby Brennan. It just came out as we're recording this one. But I think a lot of people are attracted to semi-absentee, and that can really turn into a mess. And I love it when brands are very transparent with what it takes to be successful from an owner's involvement. So with that said, like, what does day to day look like at Modern Pure Air today? Has it always been that way? How do you see it changing in the future, if at all?
Yeah, and I love that you brought this topic up. It's one that, I've done speaking engagements all over the world and spoken to thousands of entrepreneurs. I was in an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization for many years, and I helped run their Global Student Entrepreneur Award. And so I was always talking to that next cohort, that next generation of entrepreneurs. And so many times people wanted to get into owning a business because they thought it was easy. They saw all the success that's out there, and they saw people who are going on vacations and driving nice cars and living in big houses, and like, I want that, and that's very appealing. Of course, people want that, and I spoke to a lot of people who want to be absentee owners or semi-absentee owners, and even I would love that. But the reality is, you know, business is hard. It's difficult. There's a lot of risk involved, even when you're in franchising, and you've got that support of your franchisor. It's still really difficult to be successful. And what I found is, um, I've had a couple of failures in the past. I think most entrepreneurs who get up to bat a few times do have failures. When I look at things, though, the times I failed the hardest are the times that I've tried to be that absentee owner, and I've more abdicated the business as opposed to delegated the business, but kept kind of one hand on the steering wheel. And the times I've been most successful are the times I've taken full accountability for the business and been there, or, like you said, had a business partner, like a trusted right-hand person who is there in the trenches with me. And so, as an example, 1-800 Got Junk, I was very fortunate from day one when I launched the franchise with that business that I had a business partner who lived in the territory, who was all in day to day, in the trenches, driving the business. Um, you know, I wouldn't have had the level of success in that brand, in that franchise, without having Drew as a business partner, really leading the day to day. I don't think I could have replicated that just with someone who was hired. Um, I did have another business in Seattle where I tried to replicate that, um, with a general manager, and they failed fairly quickly, unfortunately. And then, we had to sell the business and move on. With Modern Pure Air, um, as much like I mentioned before, I, taken the company public. I just got a young family. I was looking to kind of get back into the game, so to speak. But what I didn't necessarily want to do was be back in the trenches. I hate to say it, I didn't want to work too hard. Life was comfortable. And I thought I could build a business, without putting in too much effort. So I decided to start the business with a general manager in place. And, that probably wasn't fair to that person because they didn't know the business. I didn't know the business. So I couldn't really coach and develop that person. And so it didn't work out. We mutually parted ways. It was all very friendly. But then I jumped into the business and took control of the business. So now I'm 2 feet in. I'm here every day. I'm leading the charge. I'm loving it. And I think that realistically, there is that path to time independence through owning your own business. But I think you have to put in the time in order to make that a reality. I tried to short circuit and shortcut things by hiring a general manager and essentially throwing money at the problem. But that, in my opinion, doesn't work in emerging brands. If you want to go and buy, a McDonald's or a Subway and put an owner operator in place, great. But in an emerging franchise brand, you really need, in my opinion, you really need to be 2 feet in. You really need to understand the business, grow the business, set that culture and that pace for what you want the business to look like. And eventually, it can be your reward at the end. Hire someone or find an equity partner who will be that person to run the day-to-day for you. But yeah, I burned through a little bit of cash, you know, trying to short circuit things, and that didn't necessarily work so well for me. So I always say, in a smaller emerging brand, you've got to be 2 feet in. You got to be day to day. You got to understand what are the levers of the business that are going to drive success. And until you've lived it and worked it, I don't know how you can short circuit that, if that makes sense.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees, there are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
That was gold. You were spitting gold, Alex. You were spitting gold.
Well, I don't know. Silver, maybe. I don't know about gold, but
There's some gold nuggets in there. I can relate to a lot of that. You were really spitting gold. Most successful people that have had businesses, entrepreneurs, and multiple different successes, over years, have had some failures. Like, I'm one of those, and I talk openly about that. And I think, and there's a lot of luck involved in some of this too. So someone listening could be on their first or second franchise or their own business, and they are semi-absentee. They are doing the 4-hour work week because they have a GM that is just perfect for that, and it's working for them, and it will work until it doesn't, because
until that GM gets a different opportunity. Yeah.
Exactly. Something happens to them. There's another opportunity. They're burned out. They see your lifestyle and they want your lifestyle. And so they're tired. There's a million different reasons why. And right through my brain right now, I have different people, both in and outside of franchising, who's had the life 3 years ago, and a year ago it changed because their GM's gone. Their main person is gone, and they had to step back in. And then what they found, there was a lot of broken things. Where they thought things were going smooth, there's a lot of things that are broken. There's a lot of, that GM was, for better or worse, hiding things from the real owner of the business. And so they had some messes to fix when they went in. That just happens a lot. So you were really spitting a lot of gold there. I think I hope a lot of franchise buyers listen to this, because what you just described really is what most franchises are like and what most emerging brands are like. And there's a big difference between an emerging brand and an established brand. You've seen an emerging brand turn into an established brand at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. You knew what you were getting into at Modern PURAIR. You could also sit there today, 3 years into it, and be like, wow, they are far ahead of where 1-800-GOT-JUNK was back then. And that's a perspective that most people don't have. I have that perspective. I even look at our brands at Front Street that we're involved with, and I look at them and like, wow, they are so much further along than most brands are at this stage in their life cycle. Yet there are franchisees that will look at that and be like, they want more. They think it should be like a 20-year-old brand, and it's just not like that. Even no matter how much expectation setting you do, they still want or think it should be something like a 1-800-GOT-JUNK or a McDonald's or something that is much further along. So this is very valuable, really describing what an emerging brand actually is. So with that said, anything else, as you've heard me kind of share a little bit about the differences between an established and an emerging brand, that you think would be helpful to anyone out there that is thinking about buying a second or third brand? They've had a lot of success in their first one, and then they go into a new emerging one, like a Modern PURAIR or something.
Yeah, and I think two things I'd touch on there as it relates to that emerging brand, that second adventure. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs, me included, you have success in that first adventure. You build up a bit of a war chest of cash. You do, be able to, or you are able to have a bit of a flexible life. I won't necessarily say the 4-hour work week. I remember that book from a while ago. But you certainly have some flexibility in life. And life becomes easier. It's not the grind and the hustle and the pain of that first adventure. And you look to replicate that, and you kind of forget what it took to make your first adventure successful, and the pain and the torment you went through. And so one of the things I would just add to what you were just saying is, in an emerging brand, you as the owner, even in a franchise, you as the owner set the pace. You as the owner set the culture. You as the owner really are the key driver of success or failure. And so if you come in wanting to be very hands-off and kind of the absentee owner, that's the pace that your team is going to see. They're going to just look at you and go, well, I'm working for this person, but this person's never here. And they're going to come up with these assumptions like, oh, they must make so much money, and I'm helping enrich them, and whatever negative self-talk people might get into. Whereas if you can acknowledge that you've got to be 2 feet in, you've got to set the pace, set the culture, I always call it like the chief Kool-Aid officer. You've got to be the one that's first thing there in the morning, smile on your face. It doesn't matter if your kids have kept you up all night, that never happens. Or if you're feeling a bit run down that day, or if you're stressing about how you're going to make payroll at the end of the week. Like, you might be sitting there going, I have no idea how I'm making payroll at the end of the week. And that's a big weight to carry. But turning up at the office and being passionate and being energetic and being rah-rah, that's the culture that people are going to feed off and get inspired by and want to work for you. Go back early days of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We were all on a passionate mission to grow that company based on the painted picture. But we were also doing it because Brian and Cameron were people that we passionately bought into. We wanted to make it work for them. We saw that they were 2 feet in, there every day. We saw the stress that they were carrying, and we wanted to make it work for them more than anything. It wasn't just a job. It kind of transcended having a job, having a job. And that's a mentality I think a lot of business owners that I see don't put enough weight on. They think that the systems, the tools, the processes, that's what carries the business. Whereas in reality, it's you as the owner, you as the entrepreneur, you are the one that's going to drive the business, and the mindset that you have and that you bring to the table, that's going to be a reflection of the business overall. And again, in emerging brands, not everything's figured out. Things change, things develop, things evolve. That's the beauty of an evolving brand. Like I said, it's not a McDonald's where, good luck trying to change any system, because all the systems, quite frankly, are perfect. It's push and play. But in an evolving brand, that's what you're buying into. You're buying into the promise of the future, the growth, the roller coaster adventure that you're about to embark upon. That some days are going to be great, some days are going to be challenging. Not everything's figured out, but having and that's why I took so long trying to find Modern PURAIR, is having the partners around you who also understand that and are open to evolving and are open to growing and are open to saying, well, we made a mistake on that one. It didn't quite work as we thought it would. Let's now try something different or learn from that and improve for the future. That's kind of like the key, I would say, is to make sure that everyone's got that same mindset. Because I remember, it's always conversations about what we could do, what we should do, how we could be doing things differently and better. And that's just nature of business, but quite often it's a lot of noise. And it's using that cultural foundation of, the mindset that everyone's got to push that noise aside and say, how do we just grow this together? And how do we just make good decisions?
That's a good little, tangent to go down, I think, because emerging brands don't have everything figured out. They have a lot figured out, but they don't have everything figured out. That brand is going to look different in 10 years than it does today. I mean, that's just a fact. There's a lot of things that are going to improve. So that's what I mean. They don't have everything figured out. 10 years from now, it'll be a lot stronger, a lot better. That's just the fact of an emerging versus established brand. In that transition of learning and growing and getting better and innovating, what's the balance between franchisees going to the brand and being like, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this, or a brand saying no to every type of innovation or thought that a franchisee has? Like, how do you see it from where you sit of a brand that is open and good at listening and innovating versus close to it? Like, how do brands innovate with franchisees?
Yeah, and I think it's always a tough balance, to be perfectly honest, because people join the franchise system, they're entrepreneurially minded, they want to run their own business and do their own thing, but you're part of a franchise. You need, first of all, to acknowledge what you brought into and follow the systems, follow the playbook. And sometimes it takes time. Every brand's different, but sometimes it takes time for those systems or that brand awareness locally to kick in. And I think a lot of people get scared. They've invested their life savings quite often, or they've put their reputation on the line, and no, absolutely no one gets into something because they want to fail. That would be a very odd, curious decision matrix to go through. I want to launch a business because I want to fail. Everyone wants the same outcome. They want a great life. They want to support their family. They want to create a legacy. They want something that they can be proud of. And so fear kicks in really quickly. And when fear kicks in, people start short-circuiting things and say, well, I tried this once and it didn't work, so therefore I want to do something different. I see a system that you've got in place. I could do that differently. And I think that's a very natural tendency for people to take on. Even I feel it every day. Processes, systems, playbook tools I look at and go, oh, I could make that better. But why? I've brought into a system to follow the playbook, the proven playbook that works. So I think it's almost, for a lot of people, it's removing the ego, acknowledging the fear and confronting the fear, but trying to push the fear aside and just trusting the process, trusting the system. And of course, there's always ways you can tweak and evolve and try to optimize. But I think it's when people throw out the playbook and just try and do their own thing because they did it once and it didn't work, so let's not do it again. I think that's where people get into challenges and difficulties. But looking for franchisors, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK was great at this. Modern PURAIR is great at this. Is looking at how do we continually improve, optimize, and have a mindset around growth and continuous improvement. Like I said, we've never had an ego at 1-800-GOT-JUNK of, what we do today is going to be it forever. It was always, we're growing, we're evolving, we're changing, we're adapting. You know, we want the best ideas. We want thoughts. We want feedback. And same with Modern PURAIR. Like in today's world, obviously 20 years ago, the rate of change and the pace of change was totally different to today. Just look at how AI is disrupting so many industries. And that's one of the things I've been really inspired by with Lane and Modern PURAIR is just how we've adopted and integrated AI into our processes, systems, and tools, and how that's helping drive the business forward. And so just looking at things like that and making sure that you have partners who are open to change, but focusing on the right change and not the fear-based change is really important.
Yeah, I've been very happy with how Lane has embraced AI, and he is way ahead of most franchisors out there. So I get to talk to a lot of franchisors. I have a lot of friends that are founders of franchisors or C-level executives, and very few franchisors have embraced and put in the time and attention into AI that Lane is. Brigham Dallas over at Hello Sugar, another Front Street brand, they are doing so much with AI, and we're early adopters, and but methodical and measured as they started to roll stuff out, and very similar with Lane. But what that's translating to is AI in general. It is making businesses more efficient, cutting down on labor costs, having better output. There's so many different things. So any thoughts on AI in franchising or AI as a local business owner?
Absolutely. It's coming. Get ready for it. It is going to disrupt every single business out there. And I know there's a lot of debate as to whether this is good disruption or bad disruption. Again, I try and just change my mindset and say, let's embrace it and be ahead of the curve. And how do we integrate this into our business in a positive way? It's to me personally, it's not so much about cutting staff. It's about how do I free up people's time to redirect them into, revenue producing tasks or value added tasks, and AI can take care of other things. Even in our business, simple things like blueprint reading for quotes, or um, you know, trying to synthesize vast amounts of information to put deals together. There's so many things that AI can help just accelerate and free up your time that that it what the world will look like in 5 years from now is so profoundly different. And it just to me it just comes down to mindset. Is do you have a mindset of embracing this change and looking for opportunities to incorporate it into your business, or are you scared of what this may mean? And I think as long as you can embrace that change and have the positive mindset about it, then that's all good.
I just did a session yesterday in the franchisee mastermind, franchise tribe mastermind, and I was going over a report that came out. Part of it was with the IFA, and they were talking about customer experience, AI, and reputation management, and how that customer experience is starting to, brands are starting to be more focused on customer experience, from operations to marketing to sales, versus just one of those silos. And I'm looking right now, one of the stats is last year, 75% of brands monitored online reviews. This year, it's 90% of brands monitor online reviews. I would imagine Modern PURAIR has been part of that, monitoring online reviews for some time now, because what were those stats that you gave me about their online reviews?
Yeah, we've got, as a brand system-wide, over 11,000 five-star Google reviews, which is just phenomenal. Yeah, it's industry leading by far. And this is just something led by Lane, we've put a real focus on how do we generate that customer experience? How do we engage our customers? How do we create those raving fans? Just like we did with 1-800-GOT-JUNK years ago, we're creating an industry which is unexpected. So you have an expectation of junk removal people turning up to your home, the beat up old pickup truck, the oil on the driveway, like I said, and what shows up and the experience you get from end to end, from the minute you interact with our call center to when you get your invoice, it's unexpected in a positive way. And same with Modern PURAIR. Every single point along that customer journey, we're trying to reinforce that experience to make people feel better about their day. We can provide a great service, but if we can leave people feeling good about their day, feeling good about themselves, there's enough negativity in the world as it is at the minute. If we can make people feel good and feel positive through the interaction we have with them, well, that's a phenomenal customer experience tool.
I would say Modern PURAIR is ahead of the game when it comes to the customer journey, the customer experience, and whatnot versus most emerging brands. But a good validation question to franchise buyers out there is ask the franchisor, like, what is the customer journey? How much thought has gone into it? Who's a customer? What's the journey? What are the touch points? How intentional are you? So they can walk you through that. It says a lot, because just even as you just, flippantly said, there's various different touch points along the customer journey, but they're very intentional. Like, that's why there's so many 5-star Google reviews. Give us some of the secret sauce. Some of the secret sauce that Lane would not yell at me for. I don't want to get on Lane's bad side, but like, just from an intentionality standpoint, or just, some of the things that you all do at Modern PURAIR with the focus or some of the practical things to get those types of reviews. Like, what do you do?
Oh, absolutely. So, and it may sound silly, but there's nothing rocket science here. It's kind of the basics, but it's that cumulative effort. And I think often companies, they get so focused on their service or their product, and they think everything is wrapped up around the service or the product. Whereas really, it's that entire, like you said, the end-to-end customer journey. So for us, it's from the moment you call into our call center, well, actually, even before that, it's seeing our sprinters, Mercedes sprinters, driving around your town. Are they clean? If they're covered in mud and they're dirty, that doesn't set that first good brand impression. So are you seeing, Mercedes sprinters that are clean and shiny, driving safe around your neighborhood, not speeding and cutting corners? You then call into our call center, and someone answers the phone really quickly, and you have an engaging conversation with a live agent. And more often than not, when we do secret shopper calls to our competitors, it's someone in the truck, or it goes to a voicemail and they never call you back. So just having, a live agent answer the phone quickly is quite unique in today's world. You're not stuck in the 17-layer deep automated phone trees of press 1 for this and press 2 for that. And then being able to get appointments booked quickly with upfront pricing, having call aheads to confirm the appointment, having our team show up on time, our uniformed drivers who are friendly, and they don't just knock on the door and be like, oh, hi, Mr. Van Horn, I'm here to clean your ductwork. We're creating an experience. We're looking to engage. Like, how's your day going? Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting us into your home today. And then keeping the customer informed of what we're doing as we're providing the service. So it's not just, okay, we'll go and do our thing and come back in a couple of hours when we're done. It's keeping the customer involved in that journey, having touch points with them along the way, showing them what we're doing. When we take our big commercial, custom built vacuum into someone's home, we explain to them before we turn it on that it's going to be loud. In my franchise in Vancouver, we offer people earplugs. Say it's not that loud, but just in case, 9 times out of 10 they don't take them. But they really appreciate at least being informed that the vacuum's going to be a little bit louder. We're thinking about them and their environment in their home. after the job's completed, we send people a personal handwritten thank you card. You know, who does that these days? A lot of companies will rely on an automated email follow-up. And I'm not saying don't do that, but again, creating moments of differentiation, unexpected moments, getting a handwritten thank you card from the technician that serviced your home. That's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So it's all these little touch points along the way that have that cumulative impact.
It's not hacking into not hacking in or doing something with the algorithm that automatically creates a bunch of 5-star reviews. Like,
No.
this is intentionality, everyone. Like, as
Yeah.
you listen to this, like when you're validating with the franchisee, you want to hear this type of thing. And I'm sure franchisees right now are like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of an emerging brand. We don't have all of this thought out like this. That's the difference between a founder that is an amazing leader and has been in the business for a long time and has made the mistakes and has improved the system and has rolled it out, in Canada and now the US. Like, that's the difference. So it starts in the very beginning and everything is intentional. And that's why they have all of these high reviews. I think so. A practical takeaway for franchisees out there: get your reviews, copy and paste 10, 20, 50 reviews, copy and paste them, put that into ChatGPT and just say, please rate these for me. You don't have to say please, just rate these for me. Like, that's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. And on the mastermind, I gave them a very robust prompt on how to do that, but just to start to understand what your customers are saying about your business. Even if they are all 5 stars, like, what is it that makes it 5 stars, so you can reinforce that with your team members. Like, there's a lot that I think a lot of franchisees, Alex, are missing it with reviews. And that's just the scorecard. That's just your grade. That tells you what is going on in your business and customer experience and that customer journey.
Yeah.
So you need to understand what it really is and not what you want it to be or what you think it is. So I'm glad that we got into the customer reviews. Anything else that you would add to that piece of the conversation?
Yeah, I just love the fact you said the intentionality there. I think a lot of people I talk to view customer reviews, be it Google reviews, NPS, Net Promoter Score, whatever platform you use. I think they view it as an outcome, whereas I use it as a leading indicator for the business. It's a real driver of the business. Looking at every little touch point with the customer, how do we use that as an opportunity to create a point of difference? And what would I want as a customer? And does that touch point increase that sense of satisfaction or detract from it? And the Google reviews are great. Like, I love, it's not the 5-star Google review, it's the comments that come with it. Like you said, like, those are gold. I read every single one. I try and get my team to get their name popped in there as well, so I know, oh, that technician did this. Oh wow, they got to understand the customer's needs, and they talk to um, uh, the customer about their dog and their pet and all that kind of stuff. That technician was building a relationship on site. That's cool. Even like the thank you cards, um, you know, looking at those, it's not just the act of sending that out. I'll read them before the technician sends them out, because then I know, did the technician build a good relationship with that customer? Did they pick up on little cues as to why the customers brought us into their house? So it's that intentionality behind every little step along the way. And it's hard, and it takes dedication and focus, and there's so many other things that can distract you during the day as a business owner, be it phone ringing, payroll, complaints, or whatever it might be. There's always going to be the noise, but that proactive stuff that's going to drive the business and the intentionality behind it is so powerful if you can focus the time on that. It's probably one of the most high leverage things as an owner you can do, apart from setting the cultural pace, is looking at the intentionality behind that customer journey.
Well, I think we're giving a lot of people a lot to think about today. Some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm an emerging brand and it's nowhere near where Modern Pure Air is, and I wish it was. And others are going to have a standard now on what they're looking for in an emerging brand and what they want to see. And it's not to say like emerging brands have to be where Modern Pure Air is today. I think they're ahead of most emerging brands by a fair amount because of the leadership. So this isn't like a normal emerging brand. I would say this is an extraordinary emerging brand in where they are in terms of what they have in place for franchisees already. But they're not perfect. There's no emerging brand that is perfect. So what advice would you give to somebody that is like yourself? They own a brand already. They are thinking about buying a second brand and it's an emerging brand. What, just in general, what advice would you give that person, or would you give yourself back then?
Yeah, I would say be gentle on the franchisor. And what I mean by that is be conscious of what you've bought into. If we buy emerging brands, like I said earlier, for that hope for the future. I always call it you're in the ground floor of the elevator and you're hoping that this is a big skyscraper that you're going up in. But it's going to be hard work. It's going to be bumpy. And I think taking accountability for your own business is really critical. Yes, you want all the tools, support systems, the playbook from the franchisor that you're going to follow and you should follow. But if you see things that aren't in place, it's all part of the journey. And just be aware of where your franchise is along its growth journey, and be comfortable with that. And don't get frustrated, don't get despondent, don't get down, but just try and surround yourself with the right people with the right mindset. There's always going to be people out there that are the naysayers and the complainers, but as any business owner, especially in franchising, try and get around smart people. Listen to podcasts, suck in information, join local groups of other entrepreneurs, be it, like I said earlier, like an entrepreneurs organization or whatever group it is that might work for you. Surround yourself with like-minded people who are living the same journey as you, have different perspectives, different ways of thinking, who can, keep you engaged and energized during those tough times. I think the more positivity you can suck in, the better it will be for you, your mental health, your own success. Because there's always a lot that you can focus on which isn't going well, especially in an emerging brand. Because you're always looking at that future of where we could be, as opposed to celebrating where we are. So I think it's great just to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with passionate, like-minded people with a positive mindset.
Well said. I'm not going to add a thing to that because I thought you said exactly what I think as a franchisee and a franchisor. You summed it all up. Thanks for coming on the pod, man.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.